Ready or Not 2, Here I Come picks up right where the first movie ended, something I immediately appreciated because Grace's experience in that movie would have a lot of fallout. The cops are going to have a lot of questions, she's going to have quite a mental and physical recovery ahead. It'd be tempting to skip all that, but instead, Ready or Not 2 embraces it. The first movie ended with this.
Jesus Christ, what happened to you?
In-laws.
The sequel shows us the moments after, with cops asking questions like, did she say in-laws? What did she mean by that? Then, the movie finds a way to immediately put her into another round of hide and seek. Spoilers ahead. If you're prepared, grab a weapon appropriate to the era in which your ancestry made their pact with LaBelle, and follow me. Grace wakes up in the hospital in handcuffs. As the sole survivor covered head to toe in Ladomus blood and very little of her own, of course she's a prime suspect. Worse than that, guess who shows up at the hospital? Her estranged sister, Faith, still listed as Grace's emergency contact. She never got around to changing it. You'll never guess why they're estranged. The same as in just about every movie that needs to pick a character arc off the shelf. Grace, you left home when I was just a kid. You abandoned me. Faith, I was 18 and you gotta understand, I had to leave. I had to get out of there. Ready or Not 2 is a good time overall, but I found the sister rivalry to be the weakest element. It's a familiar trope and feels particularly generic because of how little it's developed and how the resolution plays out exactly as expected. Wow, you do care about me after all. Catherine Newton as Grace's sister was apparently added because directors Tyler Gillette and Matt Bettinelli-Olpin loved working with her on the vampire movie Abigail, and the idea of her as Samara Weaving's sister resonated with them. They figured the Grace-Alex bride and groom relationship was the emotional core of the first movie. Grace and Faith as sisters could be the core of the second. Anyway, we all know why we're here, to play hide and seek. So, how do we get there? Ready or Not 2 takes after the John Wick franchise with absurd and fun world building. Turns out the Ladomus family was part of a high council, which controls the world. Right now, the Danforth family is in charge of that council, but the whole satanic operation is saddled with rules and traditions by Mr. LaBelle, including one that says if a bride survives hide and seek, she plays another round, but this time, if she wins, she becomes the new head of the council. But it's also an opportunity for the other families, because they all get to compete. Meaning, if someone other than the Danforths kill Grace, they become the new heads. This expanded mythology was partly inspired by a post-credits scene that was written for the first movie but never filmed due to budget and scheduling. Co-director Tyler Gillette described the scene to Entertainment Weekly. It's a bunch of clearly very wealthy individuals talking about, did you hear what happened to the Ladomuses? And then they walk through some big doors and reveal there's a giant crowd of people who are all there to worship LaBelle. I believe that Hail Satan was the last line of that tag. There is a lot of explaining at the start of this movie. That was true in the original too, but it was enhanced by novelty. It was all new to us. And in this movie, it comes after Grace recaps the first movie for Faith. Which, yes, might have rubbed me the wrong way, because if movies start explaining themselves, what's my job? It all felt a bit tedious because the novelty is gone. There's no mystery where it's heading. It's just a lot of contorting and twisting this movie back into the shape of the first movie. How do we get Grace into another game of hide and seek? Here's all the exposition to get us there, but there was definitely also some fun. David Cronenberg as Mr. Danforth displays just how much power the High Council wields. He's watching the news about a war. He makes a call and says, "Approve the ceasefire." Seconds later, the news reports, "Hey, a ceasefire has been reached." I love Elijah Wood as the lawyer who handles all the High Council affairs. The way he's unfazed by all the Satanism, people spontaneously exploding. He's always calm, sometimes with a little amused smile. The more absurd it gets in action rather than just words, the more fun. Another example, Sarah Michelle Gellar and Sean Hattasey as Danforth's children, Ursula and Titus. Mr. Danforth calmly asks them to smother him with a pillow once they get the news of the bride's survival. With him dead, it ensures Ursula and Titus will be the ones to compete in the game, to retain their status as head of the council. So yeah, there's fun getting this intimate peek at the rich and elite. So another Another game begins, this time at the sprawling Danforth Manor. To slow Grace down, they saddle her with the estranged sister, Faith, handcuffing the two together. This time, there's less sneaking around a dark mansion, more running around a golf course and dodging bullets from inept sharpshooters. And like the original, that's where most of the humor comes from. These rich people can't even shoot fish in a barrel, they're bad at killing, and there's another element where each family needs one person to participate in the game as a representative. The rest of them, siblings, wives, sons, or daughters, can just sit back and watch. Unless the participant is killed, then they take their spot. So while watching, it's fun to see how nonchalant they are, snacking, drinking, and reacting to the violence like they're watching a movie. Like I said, this movie also has less sneaking. It feels more like waves of bad guys are sent after Grace and Faith, forcing them to fight them off in creative ways. Neither are trained fighters, so the fights are always messy and over the top, even more so than the original. One of my favorites has to be the guy they dispatch by tossing him into an industrial washer. He comes out so burned his flesh is melting off, and Grace starts gagging when she has to get close enough to see if he has a phone they can steal off him. In terms of over the top, this movie also takes the original's climax, the entire Ladomus family exploding, and uses it pretty gratuitously. Break the rules? Like trying to attack Grace before the game formally begins, you and your entire bloodline explodes. Kill a fellow competitor from one of the other families? Your bloodline explodes. Since it's more over the top, more action heavy, less sneaky, involves more modern weaponry. At one point a bazooka shows up, more gratuitous with its supernatural punishments, and jettisons the old dark house vibes. It definitely alters the tone, going for something more action comedy than horror comedy, which is a change I wasn't too happy with overall. Again, still a lot of fun, but less of that unique Ready or Not flavor. Things change when they're attacked by Wan Chen Xing, and she doesn't want to kill them, just talk. She found a loophole in the bylaws, where Grace can escape the game without playing. All she has to do is marry into one of the council families. Then the game is over. So Xing proposes that Grace marry her son. Grace gets to live, the game is over, and what's in it for Xing? Her family becomes head of the council. The only downside, other than being forced into an arranged marriage, is that once Grace is on the council, she'll have to participate in all the council-y stuff in all its satanic glory, sacrificing goats, killing innocent people in games of hide and seek, and so on. Grace politely declines, then tricks Xing into stabbing another council member, thus breaking the rules, thus exploding her and her entire bloodline, including her son, a son who is in the process of sniffing a chicken wing or something, which now he'll never get to eat. What a tragedy. As dawn approaches, the sisters are separated after one of those fights they inevitably have to have. You left me. I hate you. Leave then. So Ursula and Titus take Faith and use her as a bargaining chip, a hostage. Things get a little weirdly real here. When Titus beats Faith to within an inch of her life, that's about when the violence stopped being fun. I thought the first movie did a better job with the balancing act of tones. It comes to a head when Grace barricades herself. Titus puts a gun to Faith's head and counts down. Come out from hiding, or your sister dies. So Grace plays the one card she has left. Let Faith go and I'll come out from hiding, but you have to marry me. And that was a swerve I appreciated. In a lot of ways, this movie is basically the first movie again, but more. Before that gets too old, this twist takes things in a weird and unexpected direction. She's using the marriage loophole. Titus agrees to her terms. He will marry Grace. But as the impromptu wedding approaches, Ursula levels with Grace. I'm not a bad person. I've just done what I had to, per LaBelle's rules and everything. But listen to me. My brother Titus is evil, straight up. We saw that in how much he enjoyed hurting Faith. And at the start of the movie, when they smothered Cronenberg, he got a little too into it. Ursula warns that with Titus in charge of a council that literally rules the world, he could do incalculable damage. She wants Grace's help keeping him in check. When Titus overhears this conversation, he grabs Ursula and makes an example of her, choking her to death in front of Grace. which was effective as a surprise given her importance as a character and in demonstrating Titus's callousness. Though I won't lie, as a veteran Buffy fan, it was great seeing Sarah Michelle Gellar in a significant action horror role, and I would have loved to have seen more from her. Adam Brody as Daniel was great in the first movie as a Ladomus with questionable loyalties, who ultimately finds some degree of redemption. I wouldn't want a repeat of that arc, but Gellar is the closest we get to any of the rich a-hole characters rising above satirical buffoon status. She flirts with it, but never quite gets there before Titus dispatches her. Good as an oh crap moment, but maybe we could have gotten more from her before that. Also, wait a minute, I thought you couldn't kill other council members. The exception is, you can kill your own family. Grace takes note of that. Right after Elijah Wood says you may now kiss the bride, and Titus presses his lips against hers, formally making them family, she stabs him in the neck and neck area enough times the lesson gets through even his thick skull. Then she drops him into the corpse pit where they dispose of slaughtered goats and the like. Man, that's when you know you've made it in life, once you have your own corpse pit. Having killed her own husband, allowed by the bylaws which say you can kill your own family, Grace becomes head of the council. Her first act as head, she abdicates the throne and tosses the High Council ring into the pit. Wait a minute, can she do that? The laws are pretty loose in that regard, because it was never anticipated someone would actually walk away from so much power. So, Grace and Faith can now walk away scot-free. As for the rest of them, right now the game has ended with no one in charge of the High Council, something that will upset Mr. LaBelle greatly. So, before sunrise, someone must be wearing that ring and thus inherit the throne. With dawn only 3 minutes away, people leap into the pit. In the resulting dogpile, the maniacs push, stab, and kill in pursuit of it until the sun rises. No one wears the ring, so, you guessed it, they all explode, except Elijah Wood. After all, he's just a lawyer. I love his little smile afterwards. Like, why is he smiling? He seemed pretty on board with all the Hail Satan stuff, and with all the families dead, isn't he now out of the job? Or maybe he hated them all and this is finally his way out. If there ever is a Ready or Not 3, I would love for his character to return. Ghost LaBelle tips his hat again as Grace and Faith leave with a goat they rescued, one who narrowly escaped his fate as a nuptial sacrifice. And overall, a satisfying conclusion. I don't think Grace's victory was ever in doubt, but the wedding twist at least raised a how is she gonna get out of this one eyebrow, and it felt good to watch her stab the hell out of Titus. Now, part of the fun of the original's ending was the supernatural reveal after all the teasing leading up to it, and the question, is something supernatural really afoot or not? I kind of wish this movie had something new to add on that front. Instead, yes, it takes a few swerves and extra steps, but ends up in the same place. Everyone exploding and LaBelle tipping his hat. There's some emotional catharsis to the sisters walking off as friends again. The arc didn't work for me overall, but even just as a final image, Grace is not alone versus the original where she is alone at the end and drenched in the blood of someone who 12 hours ago she thought was the love of her life. So as a goodbye to Grace, assuming her story is done, or even just a goodbye for now, I found it satisfying. Ultimately, Ready or Not 2 is more Ready or Not, and it's fun in a lot of the same ways. It does shed some of its unique flavor and doesn't quite pull off the same tonal balancing act. This one leans heavier into comedy and loses a lot of the genuine tension and suspense from the original. Most importantly, it doesn't dissuade me of the opinion that these two directors, collectively known as Radio Silence, do have what it takes to resurrect the Mummy franchise. That's what's next on their slate, and I'm quite excited for it. I've been saying for years, after Tobey Maguire's return as Spider-Man, the only piece of media left Hollywood can mine for my personal nostalgia is Brendan Fraser in The Mummy. Also, Sliders, bring it back, you cowards! Could we see more Ready or Not in the future? Bettinelli Open told Inverse, I think we made this movie as a definitive end, but we also made the first movie as a definitive end. He added, the world can continue, but the story is complete. So it sounds like Grace and Faith can have their happy ending, but perhaps more stories can be told in this universe in the future. It's easy to see how they could expand the mythology. There could be other families out there with their own packs with maybe other LaBelle-like figures. Packs that perhaps result in games other than variations on hide and seek. Hey, turn the movie into Squid Game, but satanic. Huh? With that, remember, if you watch a movie and don't explain it, did you really watch it at all? Think about it. And I'll see you next time.